I basically went in to Oddbox when it was small, like 10 people, and started the sustainability thing. So I started more on like, how do you communicate sustainability, doing environmental claims and greenwashing, and how to measure your impact and all of that stuff. So that's where I started. And it was like, oh, actually, we need to measure our carbon footprint. So I did that really like scrappily. And then obviously over 3 years, went from doing stuff very me going and reading the like gas meters and the electricity things and stuff, to actually then having a system and employing people to do it, working with consultants to do it in like a platform. So that, and then building like a net zero strategy around that. And what does all that mean? Like, how do you do that? Science-based targets depends on people's interests. Like, I don't know where people are going to be at. We were like an environment with, our brand was built around an environmental story. So I did a lot of work being like, okay, what do we need available to people to make sure that we're accurate? What things can we say? What things can't we say? There's all sorts of like rules coming in and regulations about it. Like carbon neutral, it's like you can't say carbon neutral anymore, and offsets and all these things. And then the other part of a big part of my role was like the purpose and mission, which was how do you really anchor what you're doing, what everyone's here for, what are you driving towards, and how important that is for people's motivation in the company to set strategy around and be like, okay, this is actually the change we're trying to make in the world, like this is the purpose and why we exist, or like the vision of the future. Because that was really useful for us to just really pinpoint. Like at the beginning we were like, oh, we're less plastic and we deliver overnight so it's less miles, and we're taking stuff from food waste. We're like, you're doing all these good things, but actually we just need to focus on this is the one thing, and food waste is the thing that we're actually trying to do. And that's what we've built the whole brand around, which is generally good. I'm not a marketer, but that is I spent a lot of time with them, so that is like what's useful. And then doing research around that. And I where I got to was like bringing more of like a systems thinking lens to it, to be like, okay, let's understand, like we're all about food waste, like we know why we're here. Let's understand the problem of food waste from like a way deeper perspective, and be like, what are the root causes of it? Why does it exist? Why do we have these specifications on our food? Why do we as consumers always pick perfect things? Why are forecasts in the supermarkets the way they are? They need supply all the time. That's not how nature works. Like, how do we tackle these problems? Because we know that what we offered was not the solution to the problem. So it's like taking yourself out and trying to be bigger than just you and your supply chain. That's where you start, is to be like, these are the things we're doing. But actually there's big opportunity in collaborating with others, making like a statement about it, or even just educating people. Like a lot of what we were doing was like, we just want to change people's mindsets around food being wonky, essentially, and being like, it's fine. And if you can do that and you can create a movement, you can create pressure on supermarkets to be like, oh, now they've all got wonky lines and there's a problem with wonky lines. But you can't really anticipate the trickle effect of all that. So I like all that root cause stuff and thinking about how much bigger you work. And then now I'm working with heads of, or people in sustainability, or people who are trying to make a positive impact, to be like, how do you overcome a lot of the stuff that you were talking about as well, but bringing a bit of a mindfulness systems change. Well, I think I've gone through, like, I don't know if this will come up, but like the feelings you get, what comes up for you when you're working in sustainability, and the things that you know, then the commercial way that the world works and what you're working with, like there can be a conflict sometimes. So it can be quite draining and quite overwhelming, and also quite hard to prioritize and know what to do. And like we had to spend like a lot of time working on 100 of things we could be doing to be better for people and planet. Like, how do we really focus? Because there was one year we tried to do loads and then we didn't really do much, and then another year we tried to just focus on stuff and really give ownership to people, and that transformed it to be like, oh, okay, we actually get stuff done when we focus, and there's buy-in from like the leadership team and stuff like this. So any learnings of, okay, what really makes a difference. But it's all, I think it's all mindset stuff, and building resilience, like we were talking about, is what people like me need to help us like be bold, to take action, to like be able to deal with everything that we know is going on in the world, to be able to deal with the difficult conversations, or people being in a completely different mindset to us about sustainability. Like, you need that kind of, I think people need some support to help them be better, but just be more empowered, be able to do better in their work, feel more fulfilled in their life, and just be a bit happier. There's also so much to do, and I have a lot of sympathy for founders, like as in like you can't do everything, and yeah, we wouldn't have, the business wouldn't have survived if it only cared about full going, because there's an endless amount of stuff that you could do on sustainability or social or environmental stuff, and it's hard to be the first mover as well when other people aren't doing this. And also, what's your influence in the space? Like, there's stuff we can't really influence, people that are way bigger than us, like all the people we buy from, the fruit and veg, is we're like less than 1% of their income, so they're not going to change their practices for us. They're going to change it because the supermarkets ask them to. So like, okay, so what yeah, it's like really thinking about like, what is my role, like, and placing yourself in the grand scheme or the system that you work in, and being like, what are the things that I can influence, what can I change? So for us, it was like, we have really big customer base who care about what we do, so let's work with them and creating this brand that's all about like driving awareness on food waste. I had a team for a long time, and they've been doing it. The team maybe is like over 100, the sustainability team. So they do a lot, and they help big corporates, they help government, they help investors, they do all sorts. So part of what I was working on when I was there was how do we get this more into the fabric of PwC, so all projects are working on it. And then they've got, we were like a consultant part, so we work with clients. They also had an internal sustainability team that worked on like, okay, what do we do with our food, or solar panels and things like that. So they had a range of things, but it was doing a lot of the time. They're doing some good reports at the moment. There's some good nature things out as well. Yeah, which they've always been big on, and I feel like it's now everyone else is getting to the realization that you're like, okay, we need a nature strategy as well as not just about climate. I feel like it's just everything. Like it is inevitable that it is going to have to be the fabric of every organization. I think it's a bit unavoidable. And any organization that kind of starts with putting it in and building the blocks, things like these books are fantastic for like a framework of, okay, these are the things I need to think about in terms of how I set up my governance, how I think about how we treat our employees, how we treat the environment, how we treat our customers. It's doing good business that's good for people is just only going to become way more important. Good for people and good for the planet. B Corp are trying to get every company in the whole of the UK to change their documents so their legal documents, so that they will benefit all stakeholders. And it's also what customers want, it's what investors want, it's where legislation is going. And there's lots of support out there, and there's lots of organizations doing great things. And it's a bit like, it can be quite overwhelming, but it's one of those things you just have to take it step by step. And I think if you can have a clear, we want to do this, there's loads of organizations and places to learn from, and like ways that you can be supported to do that. And just, yeah, I think making it, like we were talking about before, like making it like bite size, or prioritize like the things that you can do and the things that are important to you, rather than it being overwhelming and then not doing anything. Because yeah, I think it also just makes sense, and it also just, depends what your values are. But if it aligns with your values, and when you want to take care of people and take care of the environment, then it feels like it makes sense for all businesses to be doing it and thinking about it. Fantastic. You did it as well, right? I think it's like it's one of those things that just has so much information that when things just hit you and you're like, whoa, like when you bring it all together and you realize the scale of what's going on. And they call it carbon literacy, but it covers like a lot more than that. Like it covers nature and biodiversity and all of that. So I think it's just a really good training for everyone to go through. As an individual and organization, it's quite powerful to do it as an organization, because then you're all on the same page and you all know the same. Because I think that's the issue with climate, and when you're working in a role like sustainability, or you're trying to make sustainable changes in the organization, everyone is at a completely different stage of even like the change curve, right? Some people might still be in denial, some people might be in like depression. Like everyone is on somewhere on that journey. So actually helping have more of a shared understanding. And then they also are quite good at creating like space to talk, or we did like climate cafes as well at Oddbox, or just created spaces where people could come and just talk about how they're feeling about things. I think is also really important, so that people aren't just like handed all this information and then you need to work out how to process it. So I think it's good to do that. And I liked what on carbon literacy they have. The last bit is all about hope and action and helping you deal with that and just focusing on that. Okay, what are the things I can do? Let me like, what is my next step? And like that's all we can all ever do. It's just the next step.